Call the meeting to order. Would you please do the roll call?
Chris,
Here.
Heather,
Here.
Sally,
Present.
Jim, Marita,
Here.
Philip.
Yep.
John.
Do we have any amendments to the agenda for today's meeting? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have any amendments to the minutes from the previous meeting? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have any public comments that are unrelated to agenda items on today's meeting? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar. We have acceptance of and scheduling of an application from Tamara McCown for a conditional use permit for a temporary trailer for construction at 567 Midcoff Highway. Motion to accept that for the next meeting?
So move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to public hearings. We have consideration of an application from Derek and Stacy Thorson for variance from the front yard setback requirement to allow for construction of an addition 10.7 feet from the property line at 807 Wrangell Avenue. Do we have any public testimony? Hearing none, do we have a motion so we can discuss?
So move.
Second.
Discussion, comments, questions?
I thought we'd already discussed this back in April or March.
That was their
Just the
trailer.
consent.
That was their trailer
The
for.
trailer,
Ah, so this is
a
something
different
new.
location just
Yeah.
until they build.
yeah.
The split level, correct? I mean, 1.5.
Recording in progress.
Taller to the back, to the portion of the house that faces the Narrows, correct? Since it is a 1.5 stories.
Height on the lot all the way around.
Lots were small.
Yeah.
Did we hear any complaints from the neighbors on this ask?
We get any comments at all, Liz?
No comments at all. I did want to add, though, I was going to ask you if you could amend your motion to include allowing for a lot coverage of 46.2%.
Okay,
It's in the findings of fact, but I forgot to put it in the motion.
okay.
It's on number
And-
8,
Our standard, just to be clear, is 30% or
35.
35? Okay, I just want to make sure we're clear on what the standard is normally.
Well, the lot is really small and there is not much more they can do but come towards the Wrangell Avenue. And none of the neighbors have any objection. So,
See it as creating a problem for still being 10 feet off the street. It's not going to create a problem for the street or clearing snow or any of that. So. Any other questions, comments?
I certainly don't have any heartburn with it. It meets all the criteria in section 2. And it seems to go along with that reasoning. So I'm gonna be in support of it.
Totally in support of it.
If the neighbors had had a problem,
Yeah.
then we probably have something to discuss, but they don't seem to have a problem.
so I make a motion that we approve the variance with the findings in fact supported here with the stipulation of the 46.2% lot coverage being a stipulation.
Second,
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call?
So the first vote is on the amendment, correct? We have it,
Mhm.
we had an amendment, okay.
Chris,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes,
Sally,
Yes,
John, Marita,
Yes,
Philip,
Okay, and on the initial motion?
Chris,
Yes.
Heather,
yes,
Sally,
yes,
John, Marita,
Yes.
Philip,
Okay. Moving on to consideration of an application from Drew Ware for a minor subdivision at 365-367 Mitkoff Highway. Public testimony? Have a motion?
so moved, Mr. Chair.
second,
Just to be clear, that includes the findings of fact, just so we're not having to amend.
Yeah, I read through the section 2 and I'm concur with the department's assessment.
Okay. Discussion. It looks pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah, I don't have any heartburn with this one either. It is pretty straightforward and that's not the final reading. I don't think so.
So. Was there any public comments, Liz? On this one?
No public comments, but it is the final approval, so.
Okay,
he's just trying to consolidate his 3 lots where he plans to build a home and
Yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with approving it.
all right. Roll call, please.
Chris,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes,
Sally,
yes,
Jim, John,
Yes.
Marita,
yes,
Philip,
Okay, we're moving on to a recommendation to the Borough Assembly regarding an application from the Petersburg Medical Center to rezone 43 vacant lots within the airport addition subdivision to public use. Do we have any public testimony? If so, please go to the podium and state your name.
Right. I'm Mary Clemens. I live at 804 Fram Street, which is just adjacent to the area we're talking about. I'm not sure if the C or D is the appropriate place to comment, but I hope, you'll consider my comments on both C and D. I'm actually for a new hospital. I think that's a great idea. I do understand the need for a new hospital. I'm getting used to the idea of it in my backyard. It's been kind of tough wrapping my head around that. But I I am okay with that, the way it's platted. And again, here, I'm not sure whether this is appropriate in this public hearing or the D public hearing, but I am okay with where the hospital is platted now on the further part of the area closer to the PIA building, buildings that further away from Joa and Fram Street. What I do want to be on public record is I want ongoing communication with the project as it goes down the line to talk to the adjacent property owners about screening and any kind of mitigation measures that can be used while the process is going on and after it's complete. So I just want that ongoing discussions with those property owners.
I'm Diane Marsh, and I'm very much opposed to where they are planning on building the hospital. It's right next door to me. I will have traffic in front of my house. Walking traffic, not foot traffic, not cars. My living room windows, I don't keep curtains on them. I don't want people walking around my house, looking in my windows. I'm just opposed to where it's planned. Maybe we need a new hospital, yes, but not right there. The parking lot is going to be right smack dab next to our property line. The cars for the parking lot are going to be driving right by my house. Lights are going to be shining in my bedroom window. Lights are going to be shining in my living room window. No, I don't like it. Plus, when it's being built, the rattling and shaking of our home with the heavy equipment, because it is the muskeg and it's going to happen. Am I going to have broken windows? Am I going to have cracked sheetrock? I'm sorry. I don't like it there. Put it on the other side of the highway. Maybe we'll still have that shaking and rattling, but at least it won't be quite as bad as it is now, or will be if it's put where it is. And so I ask you not to build it there, to build it somewhere else. Please, please, please. Thank you.
Earl McDonald, I live on, at 203 10th Street, so just over the hill from the proposed hospital. And I think this is a bad idea to throw away our existing hospital and build a new one. I noticed in the paperwork I got sent that they say that the hospital was built in 1955. Well, in 1955, they had a hospital that covered a small portion of that block along, I guess it's along Excel Street. Maybe took up 40% of the block, and then I think the long-term care area was added onto it in the 70s sometime. In the 80s, when they got all the oil money, they built the new hospital that took in the entire block. And I had friends that worked on the project at the time that were saying what first-class construction it was, really superb, well-built structure. And then I think the Joy Jansen Clinic was a later renovation in addition, but so now we have this big structure that we're gonna abandon. It's a shame that I guess you could say it's 40 years old, but we had the oldest operating cannery in Alaska, and the technology changed and they've put new guts in it and kept it going. And so I don't see why we have to build a new one. It's gonna be half again as big as far as long-term care and acute care. It makes no sense. I was born in that hospital, the 1955 hospital, shortly after it was built. And you can't do that anymore in our hospital. I remember my father having 2 hernia surgeries at that hospital. There's all kinds of things so we're gonna build this extravagant new hospital that you don't, now if you're gonna build a new one, I can see the merits of moving it closer to the airport. Because if you're gonna have a baby or if you need serious medical intervention, you have to be flown out anyway. But that being said, my objection to the particular site would be that 42 lots that are zoned for residential when we're in the middle of a housing crunch in this town. To be told, it might be less impact on our neighborhood to have that to be residential lots. I don't know, but anyway, I'm skeptical of the whole project for that reason. I think it's been misrepresented. I'm sure you can get some architects and engineers to walk through your existing building who stand to benefit from leaving and building an entire new one and say, oh, this cannot be saved, but I'm very skeptical of it. The only impact on me, I think it's a bad idea to build a new hospital. And I think it's a bad idea to put it there, but the only impact is I see there's a thing about overhead power lines from 10th Street proposed. And the only thing I'd say to that, I'm sure that adding to our 30 trillion plus national debt, we'll get a treasury grant to build this hospital and whatnot, and no expense will be spared. Now, if you drive through town down Main Street or Harbor Way or out Front Street to where they ran into a property owner who wouldn't give them an easement for underground power lines, I'd say that the way to run power to a structure like this would be when you're putting in new roads for access, it'd be to run underground. So, looks a lot better than that, but anyway, that's my thoughts on the matter. So thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
My name's Heather Khan, and I'm in favor of the new hospital. I know that it will take more money to renovate the hospital rather than build a new one. Just from many and numerous tours that I've taken throughout the hospital, I know that is a financial need. I agree where it would be rezoned. I think that we can work with the neighbors, and I think that we can work with them through communication and really taking into account the needs that they're seeing. I just think that that can all be done and taken care of. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Yeah. So why the proposed lot 2?
I might not be the best person to answer that question. Yes.
Any further testimony?
Hello, I'm Jared Cook. I live at 312 Hungerford Hill. Presently on the board, hospital board. But I'll just make the comments for myself. We were given 5 locations to choose from by the borough. This was the one that came to the top of that group. I don't know where else we would put a hospital. And I don't know where we would put one where it wouldn't affect some resident in the community in an adverse way. We've had experts go through the existing hospital and they've told it we're reaching the end of its life. We've been told that it'll cost more to replace, to try to rebuild in the existing spot. So for us, we're just trying to continue the quality of healthcare in this community that we have. And we've been told it'll be cheaper in a new facility. That's kind of where we're at.
Ask the same question of you.
You can, I don't have the map in front of me, so I don't know if lot 2 is the portion closer to Tlingit Haida. Is that the one you're referring
It's
to? or-
the lot, yeah, it's
Okay.
the lot 2 that's not got any of the hospital infrastructure already, planned on it.
Correct. And there may be some better answers, but we put that one in there as for future expansion if needed, knowing that it was still under the control of the borough to do other things with it if they needed to in the future.
I have a question too.
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, a two-part. What is planned for the existing facility once it's vacant? Or how much would it cost to tear it down?
I don't know the exact cost. We are putting it in the budget to do demolition, but it is a borough building, so it'll ultimately be up to the borough as to what happens to it in the end.
Thank you.
No question. Out of the 5 choices you had, this one seems to take up the most residential space. Is any of the other choices, any of the other 4 choices didn't use up this much potential residential space? I keep hearing we have not enough land to go around for people who want to build here, and then this is taking up, like we heard in previous testimony, 42 lots. And it's sort of concerning to me if we take this big chunk of residential land off the market, it's just going to make it even harder to find a place to build. Were the other lots off, away from residential spots?
I think they all had some residential lots close or near them. I don't know if all of them did, but most of them weren't big enough in the area, and the cost to get the correct electrical and water to them was going to be significantly more than this location.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about taking up that much residential space, but thank you for your answer.
Thank you. Any additional testimony, comments? We have a motion to be able to discuss.
Are we, is this to accept?
Have to do a motion so we can discuss it.
I know, but we're at a point here, we're going to decide whether we're going to accept this plan.
We're making a recommendation to the Borough Assembly regarding this. So either they move forward with it or
So
move forward with the rezone or not is what we're asking on this question. And then the next one is consideration of an application for major subdivision. So,
I guess all the discussion's already been done previous, and this is their.
well, we make a recommendation to the Borough Assembly, and the Borough Assembly takes up the question about, because they have the final say on it. So it has, we make a recommendation to them either up or down. And then,
Seems like there's
Yeah.
a lot of discussion, questions.
I have
to be answered.
a question on parliamentary procedure. If there's no motion, then it dies for lack of a motion, correct?
right.
Okay, I just wanted to know. Adhere to that.
I make a motion, we go ahead and open this up for discussion here among us. It seems like we keep having questions pop up. I don't know how to. I make a motion for discussion.
We have a second? All right. Questions, discussion?
I would
Mr.
like to
Chairman,
reiterate what John said. We are very short on properties for multifamily, for single family, and these streets, Joa and the other, they do come right up to these properties, and somebody could potentially keep punching in a road and put some water sewer in, and maybe some housing problems could be satisfied. I myself have a lot of problem with asking for a lot, for the proposed lot too. There isn't any designated use for it yet. It ties up more land. And I really just don't think it's a necessary ask right at this point.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I was just going to suggest, if you have questions that you haven't gotten answers to, Jay Farmwald, who's the project manager for this project, is on the Zoom right there. So there are other resources here in the room that can answer your questions that maybe some of the people that were testifying don't know the answers to. So I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Okay, thank you, Liz.
Sure.
Do we want to ask Jay any questions or do you want to address him?
Jay, are you with us?
I'm listening in, and Phil Hofstetter is also on the call.
Okay, so is there an answer for the necessity at this time for the proposed lot 2?
No specific plans for Lot 2. It would stay with the borough and could be used at the borough's discretion in the future. I guess one alternative would be to not consolidate those lots into a separate parcel called Lot 2.
Currently, it's made up of some commercial 1 lots. Several of them are multifamily zoned lots, and then there is some open space. So I hate to see multifamily opportunity, land for multifamily, that kind of an opportunity to go away for some down the road possible maybe use.
I think that's a potential. I would defer to probably Liz at the borough for her input, staff input at the borough regarding any issues as far as leaving those lots as currently zoned. And the replat would have to somehow accommodate, I believe, Liz, the geometry. Some of the lot geometries may have to change. But what you're talking about is leaving a handful of individual lots versus consolidating into a single aggregate parcel.
Yeah, I was thinking just leave it as is, not be part of a proposal by the hospital.
I'm not saying I'm for or against it, but I will tell you that I understand the location because it's close to the manor. It's closer to airport, it's closer to EMT and fire. It's, next to a commercial area. PIA, BMV, the store. Where some of the and it honestly would be kind of nice to get that traffic away from downtown. Right, it's closer to water. So that helps keep that down.
The hospital expecting to hire many more people that would need housing? Since we seem to have a housing shortage where, I just came back from Mayo Clinic, and if you look around the Mayo Clinic area, the area's grown up tremendously to support the hospital and housing and apartments and condos, because it's just grown exponentially. I'm just thinking of.
Well, Phil's on the line with Jay, so maybe he can answer that.
Yeah, I'm here if you would like me to ask me any questions. For you're asking about future housing for additional staff, is that the question?
If the question is, are you planning on hiring additional staff and therefore we're gonna need additional housing to accommodate that staff?
Yeah, so at this time, the plan is to make as efficient a building as possible, so we would not add additional staff or significant staff, and certainly not beyond what we're doing right now.
Those seem like pretty prime lots for that area. I mean, when you consider growth, it's close to Hammers, it's close to the post office, it's close to the airport for residential. They seem like really prime lots for housing growth as opposed to other areas that would be expensive to develop also. I mean, muskeg is an issue. Excavating muskeg down the hard pan is very expensive. It's just as expensive to haul the mud out as it is to haul rock in. Unless they plan on putting in a piling, I doubt that. So, I think some pretty nice lots are in that area. Seems like a perfect residential area for more housing. Just to be a devil's advocate.
I'm a little concerned about it with the two entrances only and the amount of traffic, having the emergency over on the side against Excel Street. And what that's going to do as far as traffic on Excel, and has that been addressed? Well, is there going to be improvements to Excel Street to accommodate that, or is that in the plans?
This is Jay. I could address that. We worked with the borough to add a line item into the grant proposal submitted to the Denali Commission back in April that would include improvements to about 300 feet of Excel Street up by the ball fields. And that would be the estimate that the borough provided was $250,000 for widening, straightening, and chip sealing, as I recall. And that did find its way into the grant application to the Denali Commission.
Please go to.
Jennifer Briner, and I'm an employee of PMC and also on the steering committee. The Excel Street access is a secondary access for people who, like if there was a problem with the main access, the primary access is off of Haugen. So everybody would be expected to turn off of Haugen, and it would be right before the turnoff for like the PIA and the grocery store, because we didn't want to increase traffic through that area. So it would be a direct turnoff from Haugen. And then there's an interior road that goes along the hospital that would bring you to the emergency room. So there's been some discussion even, is that Excel Street even an open street, or is it something that is only opened up as needed? So we don't anticipate the traffic up Excel to be increased. It would be just the straight access from Haugen Drive.
Thank you. Questions? Comments?
Wondering if does the borough have plans for taking away so many lots as to finding rezoning for other places for buildings to, for single housing dwelling?
Liz, do you know how many open lots the borough currently has by chance?
That are already platted? I don't know why I asked that, because I don't know the answer either way, actually, off the top of my head. There's certainly residential, especially single family land that's zoned single family that's undeveloped, you know, and it's a question of extending utilities to open those up.
Do you currently have utilities? I didn't read that part. I missed
It does not. The utilities end where the current residential development is.
having a hard time because there's road access to these lots now. I mean, the road doesn't extend onto these lots, but it comes to them. And maybe there's some platted lands out there that are zoned residential, but don't have roads as close enough to put another road, utilities in.
That's one of the reasons they want this here, to keep the cost down for the building. So
That's
it's
true.
our circle that goes round and round.
That's true.
One of the other things that I would like you to consider is what are we going to do for future healthcare if we don't start the process in some form for a new facility? We have to start the process for how we're shutting this one down, because we can't continue to function without either rebuilding it in place, which is going to be a higher cost, or having the community continue to put money into it to keep it open and keep it upgraded. So I would ask that you would keep that in mind, is what are we going to do for future healthcare if we don't keep this process going at this present time for a new facility? Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Yes.
Yeah, I might be a little bit old fashioned. I was brought up to be a little bit conservative on this number that we're gonna end up. We have a number in front of us right now, but I don't think that's a least bit realistic. And it scares the heck out of me because it's gonna have to be paid for somehow. And it's not gonna all come from government grants and stuff like that. And if we build I know the hospital could be improved. I was taught a long time ago to take care of what I have and then rebuild it. And I keep hearing it's going to cost a lot more to refurbish the one we have, the facility we have, versus build a new one. Well, we already have a footprint. We already have a building on that building. And in the past, they've added on to it while the other part of the building was fully operational. And that, I mean, that, I don't know if we've completely lost that option by not looking into rebuilding. I haven't followed this process all the way. It seems like it started a long time ago before I even was aware that it was going on. It seems that sort of, I see a lot of negativity about it. And I think maybe the negativity is about the cost, number one, and what we get out of the hospital we have here. Don't get me wrong. I really appreciate it. And it's probably saved my life more than once. But what we can do at the hospital we have here and is we used to be able to go get a colonoscopy, a tonsillectomy, have a baby, and I've had my appendix taken out down here at this hospital back in the late 60s and survived. But now we can't do that. That's probably more to do with insurance issues and stuff like that. I know we got good doctors here in our facility and all the people are trained really well and are very good help, but I'm still a little bit skeptical. One thing that stands out to me is the large block of residential lots that are going to disappear. I'm not so sure the way things go in Petersburg is going to keep growing anyway. I hate to be pessimistic and negative about it, but and maybe a new hospital would bring more people here, but I'm not sure. I'm just a little bit skeptical of the whole thing, and building more than we need is sort of scary to me. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Else?
Is it possible to comment? This is Phil Hofstetter.
Sure.
Yeah, hey, thank you so much for reviewing this. I'd like to comment on the existing site. We did have an application. We did have a master planning completed by funding from the Denali Commission back in 2019, which is very detailed. And the first thing we asked that the architect who came on was to assess what it would take to demolition and even absorb another street and expand the lot that's on the existing site and do it in this phased approach. And the challenge, and that was really something we were pushing early on. And in that document, it's really clear that the cost, and due to the constraints and limitations that you're running into, and that we bear in mind, we're not just a hospital, we're a long-term care facility. So we have people living there 24/7, elders that require a lot of care. Currently, they are in approximately 200 square feet of space to deliver that care. And so when we're building a future hospital, and not just the regulation is requirement, when we break a wall and we have to renovate, it automatically increases in size, but the care for the facility, care for those residents, and making the size appropriate weighs into that. But to build that structure in the existing site is the most expensive. And that was shocker to me when I first read that, but we went through that so in a lot of detail. There's a document that's available publicly. It's on our website that has that in very professional and exact detail, that has reviewed that with cost estimates at that time. And as you know, those costs increase as time goes on. So those are just a couple of things to bear in mind as we're considering this. And I agree with Jared, we really, we do have to do something with the facility in planning for this and planning for the future of healthcare. It's not something that's sustainable with the existing facility. Mike Boggs is in the room. He has to manage that plant every day, and it's really it's not set up to last long term. And I think we really need to make sure that we're keeping these things in mind as we're trying to move forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment. I worked at the hospital and 17, 20 years. I worked there like for 5 years. And I worked mostly evenings, and you guys, we couldn't keep those residents warm. It was very, very hard back then, and it's gotten only worse, I'm sure. But you can't have heaters in these rooms because of the dangers of that. Somebody talked to Mike, or have Mike stand up and just tell some of those basic logistic things of just keeping residents as they get older comfortable, and they're frail. And I'm amazed at the quality of healthcare that the CNAs and the nurses and stuff do here. I had considered having my mother, I was going to have her transported up here if my dad died before her, and just because I knew that she could have better care than that one-on-one care there. But are the facilities, they're lacking. It's not the passion and the staff and the people want to give it to them. It's like, what do we do? Have everybody in the community crochet another blanket and plop it on top of it, keep it warmer and warmer? I'm in support of this, and I never thought I'd say that because I am very conservative as far as I see the waste. But I remember even way back when I first started working, and I can't even remember the nurses. She took the head nurse, was it Sue? Was Sandy, and she says she'd walk underneath there and underneath and where the work and the pipes and everything. And maybe that's what we need to do, is go in, put our hard hats on and go actually look at what it would take. I don't know, but I feel that the biggest waste of money that has happened in this whole thing is them even renovating and adding that Joey Jensen clinic, because I knew then it was put on a building that was crumbling. And it was a waste of money is what I think, that was far worse waste of money. And I think that the time has come that we just need to bite the bullet and provide what needs to be done. I just feel it's time to move it on and get something better. And I'm also would like to state personally that I was in Sitka, up in Juneau, and talking to some residents up there, and they were so grateful that we hadn't moved on to search to carry the bill, because they're talking the quality of care sense, and the government just handing over the properties and keep handing over properties, and buildings going up everywhere, but the quality of care is going down. And we need to guard the quality of care that we have, and we need to guard our residents. We need to guard the elderly.
In the battle for public opinion, I don't know that maybe the public's been educated enough to what the problems are of this hospital that we have, what it takes to get it up to grade, what's wrong with it that needs to be changed. At the time, I read an article the other day that 25% of rural hospitals in this state are going broke. My son's girlfriend works in the Juneau Hospital. They said they're losing almost $1 million a month. So at what point does,
I feel like I've heard a lot of public testimony from people saying that they feel it's premature because they haven't heard enough about it. I know a lot of information has been put out, but some of their questions were like, what are the overall costs going to be to the borough after it's our baby? And, even if it could be all built by grant money, like we're going to have to pay for operating it and maintaining it. And like before I came to this meeting, I went to the borough's website and listened again to the borough assembly meeting. And it's frustrating to me that I can listen to the harbor board meeting. I can see our meeting videos on the website, on the borough's website. And the only board you can't see their meetings or hear their meetings or, read along with their agendas and stuff is the hospital board. I feel a lot of people feel like they're doing things maybe a bit behind closed doors, since we can't just go. I think the public is welcome to go to their meetings, but not everybody can do that all the time. So if you can do like I could do today and go back and look at past meetings and understand more how they come to this decision and why, the public might feel a little more invested and a little more trusted with, the knowledge. How did we come here? Why this particular property? And I don't know. Like the school board also does not have access on our website, but you can go to KFSK, and in their archives, you can listen to every single one of the school board meetings and refresh yourself. And it's frustrating to me that the hospital board won't or doesn't make that available to us.
well, we've spent on this particular building here, when was this built? 1950 something, and we put 9 million into it?
Yeah, I would like to ask Hofstadter or whomever the proper person to ask is why we can't have those meetings, recorded meetings available to the public, so we could all go back and review them. And, maybe there is a lot of information in there that could sway a lot of people to say, hey, we need this. This is why, or this is why we like where it's being put. But you might find a lot of very applicable information there.
Yeah, I can respond if I may.
Yes.
Yeah, so all of our meetings are public, and all our minutes and financials, all our reports, all that information is available to the public. I have I actually, I agree with you on that completely. I have asked KFSK if they can, record our board meetings in the same way, because the assembly meetings are, available and the school board is on, and they didn't have the resources is what I was told. So I agree with you. I very, very much would love to have each one, you know, online or available on KFSK. They do attend, you know, KFSK, and the pilot attend our board meetings, as well. And, I wish I can get more recordings out there on that, and agree with that. So, so I've asked that quite a number of times, a handful of times since I've been here on that exact thing. But all of our minutes, all of our, availability, the meetings are advertised, public, everything is available to the public.
Okay, where? Where is it available?
They should be on our website, and I think that, you know, that's a good recommendation, that maybe that's not as visible as it should be, but I'm happy to make that link available to everyone there.
Thank you.
I have had a bit of experience in working on structures such as hospitals before. I actually worked at one point with a company that does fire stopping. And they were actually doing a fire stopping training program for institutions like hospitals. And just what has to be done to maintain the fire stopping in a building so it maintains its accreditation, such as a hospital, is incredible. And all systems are like that. It's very expensive to maintain an old building when it comes to doing that. So I do have some experience with it. And I think that's part of what needs to be educated to the public, is the fact that there is a lot involved in maintaining an older building. In fire stopping, for instance, there's a lot of firewalls in a hospital because you don't want a fire to spread from one section of the building to another section of the building. And anytime somebody punches a hole through a wall and runs a wire, that wire has to be encased in a fire stopping material, so it prevents the fire from moving to the next section. And a lot of times that's not done. And if it's not done properly, then what ends up happening is the hospital can lose its accreditation, which means they don't get Medicaid funding and Medicare funding. So there's a lot of that has to be addressed. And I think people need to understand that maybe it is cheaper, but I think it probably needs, it's an education thing of getting that out to the public, that maybe it's a situation that needs to be, you know, there's a lot more pieces that people need to understand why it's going to be easier and cheaper to build a new hospital versus trying to maintain the one that we have. So that's my 2 cents on the thing.
I think it's worth a bit more than 2 cents. But
Yeah.
And, you know, I can say from, you know, the downtown hardware store and having to upgrade things, because even systems that were put in or at the grocery store 25 years ago are so outdated and stuff. And there was a electrical line in the back that we have to spend $100,000 to move because it's not to current code. The hardware store is even worse because to add electrical, we don't have our 30-foot mandatory clearance, so we have to put the unit on the outside. So I can, you know, I can vouch for a lot of the stuff, and you know, structurally it might be okay, but every time you have to do something, an upgrade, you're required to make it to current code. And that's what people don't, in a commercial, maybe not residential, it's a little different, but commercially speaking, you don't have a choice.
Well, and a hospital is basically the highest level of the code. It has to be, because you have people in there living there basically all the time, and people who cannot easily be moved in many cases. Your standard is one of the highest in the building code that has to be met.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just want to verify the motion that you have. So I had a recommended motion in the staff report about, and I wasn't sure if the motion that was made.
I don't think it was specifically
If
referencing.
that was the intent, or
intention,
I just
yeah.
want to make sure that whatever happens is
Yeah.
focused on the motion at hand. Or the action at hand.
And I do agree with people that this is a lot of money and we really should spend some time discussing it. I mean, it doesn't hurt to have a little bit more time to talk about.
This is Jay Farmwell, the project manager. If it's appropriate, I do have a comment back to
Yes.
the cost of operations that the group may want to consider. And accreditation. In addition to the hospitals needing to meet minimum criteria with respect to space for patients and all the requirements to qualify for Medicaid, Medicare, which is a significant issue with the old building. There's the cost to actually operate it. Somebody touched earlier on, the challenge that Mike Boggs faces every day in keeping building systems operational. The design team that's working on the new hospital project has prepared estimates for energy consumption, the new building compared to the existing building. The new building will be 27% more efficient on an energy basis per square foot than the old building. Said another way, it's a very inefficient, poorly insulated old building. The new building will be much better.
Thank you.
Back and redo the amendment.
I think we need to be clear that it meets that what we have a motion on, it meets that criteria. So.
Did you want to restate it?
No,
Okay, so on page 26, I'll do it.
you do it.
Okay. I move to recommend to the Borough Assembly that the Petersburg Borough zoning map be amended by rezoning the subject property as described in Exhibit A to public use with accompanying findings as presented.
Okay.
Is that the motion we've been discussing for the last half an hour?
Yes.
Okay. Doesn't need another second then, does it? It does? Okay.
Can I second it? I second it.
Yeah.
Do something.
Do we have any further discussion on this? Hearing none, please do the roll call.
Going to abstain because I don't feel I have enough information to make a good decision.
Beth,
Yes.
John,
No.
Philip,
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, so the motion fails.
Yes.
Would you like to amend the determination since it no longer matches your recommendation?
Okay.
I'd appreciate it.
We need to amend our motion because we,
Not the
or
motion,
the
but
motion,
just
the
the,
determination.
yeah, just a section 2 of that findings. So
Okay.
that explains what your reasoning is for not recommending.
Okay, in section 2 on page 27, That's what we're talking about.
27 and 28, yep.
27 continuing on to 28. Mhm. So we need a reason, we need reasoning why it, why the findings do not meet, the determination. Liz, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if there's changes to the findings, that's fine too, but basically there's these findings and then you make a recommendation. So your determination
Yeah.
is, that no, that this property is not suitable for this use. And so the reason being, and that's a question mark at the end. The reason is,
So,
So for example, maybe you think that's too much land taken or it's.
For
it
future
interferes-
speculation.
Interferes with the, because ours is
Unspecified
more
use.
zoning and planning, not
right.
deciding if a hospital should go there.
How to word it, but I guess one reason would be that a lot of land was being asked to be rezoned and set aside for the hospital for future possible use that was unspecified, and it takes away the opportunity for multifamily home. And we're short on that kind of properties. So that would be one objection that I had.
The others?
My objection would be the same as Heather's.
I would like to hear more opinions from the public, pro and con.
I agree.
I think public opinion is always about support. So education is everything.
So what I'm hearing is that, we'd be willing to hear this again after more information is, put out to the public about it. That seemed to be a general consensus.
Aye.
Liz, is that sufficient?
so the reason is that you didn't have enough information? You're saying your recommendation is no because you didn't have enough information.
We wanted more public input because I've heard testimony that a lot of people felt like they just didn't hear enough from the hospital. We got what they put out. But, a lot happens in a meeting that is a little bit more specific to maybe some of the people's questions that they had that weren't getting answered. They do a great job of putting out, the pictures and the plating, and I liked that. But I feel that a lot of the process, people didn't feel invested in this project because they felt left out of a lot of the process.
Being part
Section
of
two,
this.
that property.
Oh, you mean proposed?
For Liz.
Oh, yeah, I think she heard me say that about proposed lot 2 is they want to tie that up, but it has no specific purpose at this time. And yet it's zone multi-family and multi-residential, and maybe some use for that land maybe it would have better use. We just don't know what the hospital's plan would be. So maybe wait till somebody has a real solid plan before rezoning it.
I guess I would have to say that the testimony that you received made it clear that that could have been removed from the equation, that portion of the rezone request. So if that's the objection, then you could have just removed those lots from the rezone request.
Didn't understand it that way, and that is kind of nice to know that that can be taken away.
You could still
I
do
don't-
that. You could still do that now if you wanted to.
Now, that'd be great. That, I don't know that it would change my vote. There's the single-family residential lots that are still to be considered. And also, I'm with Sally. I'd like to hear more public opinion after they feel a little more educated, like go on the hospital's website, find the minutes for the meetings, and see how we came to this place, to this specific hospital that's being proposed, and even this specific location. I don't know that the average Joe got all of that from what's been presented.
I know that we were given a lot of opportunities to get that before I was ever here. They were given a lot of opportunities to get that information from the public. The public has been told and told and told. And invited and involved, but invited to become involved.
Okay, so what I have is that the reason the recommendation is no is that you wanted more public input. And then there was a concern about losing multifamily lots. Is that accurate?
Prime accessible family lots, both multi-family that's in proposed lot 2, but within proposed lot 1 are those prime single-family residential lots that are also very hard to find where there's a road leading right to those lots that, granted, the road doesn't access those lots, but it comes to them. And we're in a housing crisis too. We're in a hospital and housing crisis.
Okay, so once more time, the recommendation is not to rezone because of a desire for more public input and the loss of single-family and multifamily residential lots.
That's my sentiment.
Is that your motion?
Yes.
I'll second it.
We need to do a vote on that, Liz?
I think maybe you should, yeah.
Okay.
I generally know,
Would
but
you
maybe
read
in this
it?
case.
Would you read it back? to
Sure.
What we're voting on?
So you've already voted on the recommendation of not to rezone, and then this just is amending the rationale. The recommendation, the following determination is that there was insufficient public input, and the planning commission is concerned about the loss of single-family and multifamily residential lots.
The portion about the public input, I'd like pros and cons, not just public input. I'd like to hear both sides more clearly.
I'd like to see an easy to decipher map of Petersburg with the 5 different lots that were picked out for the hospital. So you can, the average person could look at the map and say, oh yeah, it's like by my house, I don't want it. Or that's by this place, I don't want it. And, that'll help develop opinions with some thought behind it.
The figures of the
Put it over
difference in the
Brenda.
cost.
I don't think that we're against the hospital. I think planning and zoning is about deciding what's the best use of the property that's being,
I think as part of doing if you want to see what the different lots are, we also should have a breakdown of what the costs are associated with those lots. Because tax loss, but also the costs of how much more is it going to cost to get water to that lot? How much more is it going to cost to get power to that lot? How much is it, what's it going to take as far as infrastructure for that lot? Or, what is that lot, going to require more excavation work? We got to look at that. That I think will help the public make a better decision of, okay, this is why this decision was made to go with this area. And I think that'll help answer a lot of questions.
John's
So-
idea of actually showing a map with the area. I mean, I read the names of the places. I'd never heard of them because I didn't realize that those places had names. Because they were just up the hill or up the road, you know?
Could I ask Jay Farmwald or Hofstadter, was one of the other sites across the street still on Haugen, but on the other side of Haugen? Because I heard Mrs. March mention, you know, put it over there by the fire department.
This is Jay. Yes, that was one of the sites offered up by the borough back during the master plan phase in 2020. It was subsequently removed from consideration because it's encumbered by a conservation easement that was required by the Army Corps of Engineers to build the fire hall.
Just to get us.
Are those irrevocable?
It's irrevocable. Just to get back to what we're actually, you're not really supposed to discuss after you made the vote. So if you could just nail down the determination, I think we could just move on if that's okay. So the recommendation is no because you wanted more discussion of the pros and cons from the public. And then the loss of single-family and multifamily residential lots.
And help provide more education on the project. I think a lot of people have just thrown up their hands when they heard the dollar sign. They haven't looked at all. I'm not voting against the hospital. Don't take me that way. I'm voting against the lack of knowledge for the public. And I deal with that on Board of Fish Information and North Pacific Fisheries Management Council. If you don't provide people with information, their eyes are going to roll back in their head and they're just going to be against it. So I'm not sure where, I know where two of the lots are. We've just talked about one. I know where the other one is over by the fire hall, but I don't know where the other three are. And, I probably should have educated myself a little bit more on this, but I haven't. And now I know I need to.
So if I have this one more time, the recommendation is no, because the commission thought there was a lack of education among the public on the issue, did not receive enough input and pros and cons of the issue, and the loss of single-family residential and multifamily lots.
And if you use lots of pictures, it helps.
Right. We ready for roll call? Looks like it.
John? Philip? Marita?
Yes.
This could be.
Oh,
Wait a minute.
you're just voting on the determination.
Reasons.
The determination.
I voted wrong.
Yeah. I thought those were the right determination.
We're just voting on what the
reasons of.
The reasons.
Reasons why we said.
yeah.
My vote is yes then.
Philip?
Yes.
Marita? Jim? Sally?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes. Okay. Question for Liz, do we want to continue on with the next one?
You do, yeah.
What?
You need to consider it and
Okay,
and take a vote on it.
so the next is consideration of an application from the Petersburg Medical Center to approve a preliminary plat of a major subdivision located in the Airport Addition subdivision and vacate portions of Fram Joa and North 12th Street right away. This is from just the
Oh, okay.
main section. So this is the second part. We were talking about rezoning. Now we're talking about consolidating is what this part is, into those, instead of being all those individual lots into 2 lots. So.
And we take no action based on the discussion we've had on the other 2.
We can, not have a motion. If there's no motion, there's no, yeah. So,
I think you need to take an action. I think you're required to.
Should take the motion and then say that we need to satisfy the other one before we will consider this one. I think that's appropriate.
Or-
Right, I move to approve the preliminary plat for the Petersburg Medical Center subdivision and to approve vacation of the right of ways as depicted in Exhibit A with findings of the facts as presented. Now we can have discussion. Anyways, I think that we should vote to postpone this.
well,
In light
we would
of-
vote to continue it
Yeah.
to a future meeting once we have a resolution on the previous one, because it's kind of pointless to do a replat if we're not changing the zoning. So,
Don't have a time certain to move it to. We'll take it up as,
we just continue it till a resolution is made on,
until we get through the first 2 parts.
right.
Okay. Good enough.
Add to that amendment? Or, because we had to vote on that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the term would be continue it to a future meeting when we resolved the rezone.
We continue this to another time when we can satisfy the previous discussion point to a later date.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call?
Sally? Marita?
Yes.
Philip? John?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
You have to take action per the code to approve or deny an application.
Okay. Motion.
Move to approve the application. Should, for the Petersburg Medical Center.
We have a second?
Mr. Chairman, that needs to include the vacation of the right of ways as well, that motion.
I guess I don't understand, because we didn't approve the joining of the lots, so why would we trying to approve this?
Well, this is, that we didn't approve the rezone. So this would be doing combining the lots, but they would not rezoning. Which doesn't,
We already
So
took that
is
off the
the
table with the
motion-
second.
Is the motion on the table then to combine these lots?
That was the original, the preliminary plot for the Petersburg. And my original motion was, I read it straight off here, so that was to approve the preliminary plot for the Petersburg Medical Center subdivision and approve the vacation of the right of ways from the exhibit as presented. So, and then
So I could second that for discussion. Okay,
second for discussion.
okay.
So, right, that's where we stand right
So we're
now.
on discussion and I say, no, we don't want to consolidate these lots now or give up any right of ways. Because we don't know what the future holds.
Agree. I don't know how many times we have to vote on the same thing, but I agree with Heather.
So which motion are we voting on right now? The one that Jim made? What?
The original one that was read.
The original. one,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. That's the one Jim read.
Yeah.
Okay. So
So what does the no vote mean? What does a yes vote mean?
a no vote would mean that we're voting against, combining these lots and vacating the right of ways.
Oh, okay.
So. Okay,
Okay.
so. Is everybody clear on this now? Roll call, please.
And don't ask me for.
Heather,
I vote no on consolidating these lots and vacating any right of ways.
Jim? Sally,
Again, no.
Philip? Marita,
No.
Chris,
No.
and John.
No.
Okay,
Scrambled eggs.
any commissioner comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in no way voting against a new hospital. I am all the way in approving the correct place to put the hospital and not lose a bunch of prospective residential areas. I know we need a new hospital, and I understand what's going on at the other one. And all the technical issues there. It's just an extremely technical building. So I do agree that we could use a new hospital. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I also am in favor of a new hospital, but I need to be educated a little more. When I saw the information about the price and that 29.8 million had been secured, but there was still 55.2 million needed, but we'll just get it through philanthropical endeavors and grants. I'm like, holy crap. Educate me. Tell me how. Tell me where. Where are we going to get this money, or is it going to fall on the taxpayers? That's my problem.
I guess my comment would be then that maybe some of those answers are within their minutes, at their meetings that I wish we could find on the borough's website, just like, you know, the harbor board. I go and watch the harbor board, or people come, or you go on the website and watch our meetings.
All right, any further commissioner comments? Liz, any staff comments?
No.
Okay. Our next meeting is scheduled for July 11th at noon. Anybody have any ideas of if you're going to be able to be there?
Should be here.
I'll be there.
I'll either be here or I'll be on Zoom, but I'll probably be here.
Goodbye, Mike. I expected to hear something from you. I'm disappointed. All I heard was the phone ring.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Oh.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That was almost brutal, wasn't it?
That was
Well,